Clear thinking begins with honesty. Richard Feynman made this a personal rule. Most people want to appear certain. They speak as if they know and avoid saying, "I don't know." Feynman believed that habit blocks clear thinking. He warned that the easiest person to fool is yourself. When you pretend to know, you stop learning. When you admit you do not know, you open the door to real understanding. You start to notice how your mind fills gaps. A question appears, and you feel pressure to answer. Your brain supplies a guess. The guess feels smooth, so it turns into truth. In your head, Feynman pushed against this habit. He treated "I don't know" as a strong and useful statement. Admitting ignorance is the first step toward real knowledge. Uncertainty feels uncomfortable. The mind prefers stability because stability feels safe. When you do not know, there is tension. The brain tries to remove that tension quickly, even if accuracy suffers. You see how this works in daily life. When a topic feels complex, you may rush to a simple answer. When someone asks your opinion, you may take a firm position before checking the facts. The mind wants closure. It wants a finished story. It does not like leaving a space blank. Psychology describes this as cognitive dissonance. It is the stress you feel when two things do not fit. You want to see yourself as informed, yet you realize you lack information. That conflict creates discomfort. To reduce it, the mind may invent an explanation or adopt one from others. Feynman respected the discomfort of not knowing because it is honest. He treated it as a signal that real work is required. The desire for comfort can quietly distort your thinking. Feeling like you understand something is not the same as actually understanding it. The mind often confuses familiarity with knowledge. You may hear an idea many times and assume you grasp it. You may repeat a phrase and believe you own its meaning. You notice the difference when you try to explain something clearly. You may say, "I know this," but then struggle to describe it step by step. You use broad terms. You skip connections. You expect others to fill in the gaps. That is a warning sign. Cognitive science calls this the illusion of explanatory depth. People think they understand how things work until they try to explain them in detail. Then they realize they only know the surface. Feynman used a simple test to avoid this trap. He explained ideas in plain language. If the explanation became unclear, he did not hide it. He went back to the basics and rebuilt the idea from clear parts. If you cannot explain it clearly, you do not fully understand it. Words can hide confusion. Knowing a term is not the same as knowing the idea behind it. You can memorize labels and still not understand what they mean. The mind often treats naming as knowing. You see this in your own thinking. You use a complex word and feel confident. But when you try to define it, the meaning becomes vague. You repeat a phrase you heard and feel certain, yet you cannot connect it to real facts. The solution is simple. Take the idea and explain it using plain language. Avoid jargon. Define each term. Keep the steps short. When you cannot explain a part, mark it as a gap and learn it properly. Feynman preferred simple explanations because they reveal what you truly know. Real knowledge survives simple language. Not knowing is normal. Honest thinking includes doubt. Science does not begin with certainty. It begins with questions and careful observation. Then it builds claims that can be tested and revised. When you accept uncertainty, you stop rushing to produce fake answers. You become more careful with strong words like always and never. You say, "I'm not sure," when you are not sure. That small change prevents many errors. Scientific skepticism supports this mindset. It does not mean rejecting everything. It means holding beliefs in a way that allows testing and correction. It means asking for evidence before confidence. Feynman valued this approach because it keeps the mind open. When you are comfortable with uncertainty, you do not need to protect a false story. You can keep learning without fear of being wrong. Comfort with uncertainty protects you from false confidence. Clear questions expose unclear thinking. Progress often begins with the right question. A vague question produces vague answers. A clear question shows what you know and what you do not know. You practice by keeping your questions simple. What does this mean? What causes it? What evidence supports it? What would change my view? When you ask direct questions, gaps appear. Those gaps are useful. They show where your knowledge ends. Inquiry follows a simple pattern. Define the problem. Ask a question that can be checked. Gather evidence. Build the most honest answer you can. Feynman relied on basic questions instead of hiding behind smart language. If an idea could not answer simple questions, it was not ready to be trusted. Clear questions reduce confusion and false certainty. Beliefs grow stronger when they match reality. In science, an idea must agree with observation. If it fails, it must change. Status and popularity do not matter. You can apply this rule to your own beliefs. If you think a method works, look at the results. If you think a claim is true, ask, what evidence supports it? If you believe a reason explains an outcome, look for repeat confirmation, not a single example. Empirical testing means relying on observation, measurement, and repeated checks. It means preferring what can be confirmed over what merely sounds right. It also means testing in ways that could prove you wrong. Evidence has the power to correct you and keep your thinking connected to reality. Evidence decides whether belief survives. Your own assumptions deserve the toughest testing. The mind protects its beliefs and avoids threats to them. This makes self-criticism essential. You notice how automatic this protection can be. You explain away failures. You ignore counterexamples. You call your view common sense. These are signs that comfort is guiding you more than truth. A practical rule is to try to disprove your own claim. Look for cases where it fails. Search for evidence that would force you to revise it. If you find such evidence, adjust your belief. If you cannot find it after honest effort, your confidence becomes more grounded. A belief that survives hard testing is more reliable than one that survives only friendly checks. Strong thinkers test their own certainty first. A quick answer can be a weak answer. The mind often wants closure more than accuracy. Fast thinking produces fast certainty. Slow thinking accepts open space and keeps working. You practice by adding a pause. When you feel pressure to answer, slow down. When you feel the urge to appear certain, stop. Check what you truly know. Separate facts from guesses. Allow time for the answer to develop. There are two general modes of thought. One reacts quickly and completes patterns. The other checks details and builds careful reasoning. The skill is to notice when you are rushing and switch to a slower review when it matters. Feynman preferred a clean, I don't know yet, over a confident answer built on weak ground. Patience improves intellectual honesty. Pretending blocks growth. Real learning begins with admitting limits. If you act as if you already know, you stop searching and improving. You see this in everyday behavior. You repeat what others say without understanding it. You avoid study because it exposes gaps. You cling to weak beliefs because changing them feels embarrassing. These habits protect your image, but harm your development. Improvement comes from effort, feedback, and revision. When you treat not knowing as something to hide, you avoid feedback. When you treat it as a starting point, you learn faster. Feynman cared more about accuracy than appearance. He accepted mistakes and uncertainty as part of honest work. Honest ignorance creates space for real learning. Intellectual honesty can be trained. Clear thinking requires self-awareness. You must notice when you are guessing, repeating, or using words without meaning. You build a daily habit. When certainty appears too quickly, you pause. You ask what you actually know. You list the evidence you have and separate it from assumptions. You clearly label what you do not know yet. This turns "I don't know" into a map of your current limits. Metacognition means thinking about your own thinking. When you practice it, you catch errors sooner and avoid bluffing. You become more open to learning. Feynman did not demand perfect knowledge. He demanded honest labels: known, unknown, tested, untested. When you use these labels, your thinking becomes cleaner and your learning becomes faster. Clear thinkers admit their limits before claiming knowledge.